In this video, I'm going to introduce you to a concept that should be universal, but is kind of actually secret. It's called drop it, do it, confirm it. Make sure you stick around to the end, and I'm going to give you a bonus hack to really ensure that this works every time. So in movement method, we evolved a strategy for teaching that we found incredibly effective, and it started with homeschooling my son, but it's now gone out into schools in many countries of the world, and it's part of our follow the child ethos, and it seems to tap into the natural curiosity of children to learn and to help when children are feeling intimidated by learning a certain concept. And of course, it's not just kids, it's also we adults, and we call it drop it, do it, confirm it. What we found is that if you just initially dropped the concept, the vocabulary around a concept into your conversation with somebody, a child or adult, long before you actually want to teach them about the thing, what you do is you give them a chance to familiarize themselves with something new. Why is that important? Well, the human brain reacts to anything new as a threat. And so inevitably, it doesn't matter what it is, and it doesn't matter whether you have a neurocognitive condition or not. Anything that's new, your brain says, is this a threat or not? So there's going to be a certain amount of amygdala and cortisol activity, which will block a certain amount of learning. Now, luckily, curiosity overrides this, but only if the answer to the question, is there a threat, is no, I'm actually safe. So becoming familiar with something is part of this. So for example, let's say I want to teach geometry, and I know that this person loves football. I will, in the course of conversations about football, start saying blah 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 angle, blah 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 acute, blah 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 obtuse, blah 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 polygon, blah 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 blah, little vocabulary things around geometry as they relate to how you might need to get a ball into a net, or how you might need to pass a ball from one person to another, and that these of course are all angles. And then I can start saying, oh yeah, this thing is called geometry, blah blah blah, and I don't in any way try to teach it at that phase, and I let that phase go on for, let's say, 5 days. By that time, I've piqued the person's interest, and I've introduced this vocabulary into their brain, and their brain can come to the conclusion, yeah, this is safe, this isn't any kind of threat. In fact, it seems kind of interesting because it might mean I get to play football better, or take my horse to jump over that fence better, or parallel park my car better, or whatever it is, because you can pretty much point out that everything that you do on planet Earth as a human kind of comes down to geometry at the end of the day. Okay, so following the interest, introducing the vocabulary, that's dropping it into the conversation. The next stage is the do it. Okay, so let's go back to the football analogy. So I'm playing football with this person, and now we're going to start doing practice penalty shots, and we're going to start doing them from different angles. And I will pull out a protractor, a plastic protractor that you can buy, you know, from any store or on Amazon, whatever, that we use to show kids how to measure angles. And I say, oh, you know, to get that ball from here into there, I think I need a little help. And I'll pull that thing out of my pocket. Oh yeah, it's called a protractor. And I'll put it down. And so, yeah, I kind of need to go at that angle, so I need to come to the ball at that angle, and actually it needs to go off the side of my foot at this angle. Let's see if I'm right. And then we'll just start doing it. We'll just start experimenting with different angles and measuring them, not because I'm trying to teach geometry, but because we are trying to get this ball into a net, or we are trying to pass the ball over to somebody else. This is the do it phase, in which you do it with your body. So if you take a concept that is mostly abstract, like a mathematical concept and do it on a whiteboard or something, you're going to lose automatically 50% of the people you're trying to teach, because there'll be 50% of people who absolutely have no problem getting that concept, and there'll be 50% of people like me who are not mathematically gifted. But if you give us a chance to actually do it so we understand it on a cellular level in our bodies, oh, I see, this is how the angles actually go, right, and this is how you measure them, and this is how it helps me, this is what's in it for me. Okay, that's the do it phase, and the do it phase might go on for quite a while. Ideally, you're always in the do it phase of something. That's the best way to teach. But then there comes the confirm it phase. How do I know that that information has been taken in? Well, one of the best ways we figured this out was through treasure hunts. So let's say, for example, I know that this kid not only loves football, but also loves Marvel characters, or The Lion King, or Thomas the Tank Engine. So we set up a treasure hunt through an outdoor area, possibly even an indoor area, where we have to shoot the ball into various goals made from sticks, made from actual nets, made from cushions on the floor, whatever. But we're going to shoot these balls, and we have to measure the angles. And at a certain point, there'll be a clue that says, if you can kick the ball into the goal that's by the oak tree, 75 degrees to your left, there's something cool waiting for you. Okay, and there's a little protractor there, so they've been doing this now with the protractor for perhaps some weeks. So they put it down and boom, they shoot the thing and they get the Simba toy or whatever it is. What do you do if they fail? Don't worry. Model it for them. Let them win the thing anyway. And do that as often as you need to. So then you'll come back, you'll just keep going in the do it phase. You'll come back again in 4 weeks and do that treasure hunt again in a slightly different way. But what I can promise you, and we know this from our own experience, is that usually by the, I don't know, 2nd to 5th attempt, it'll happen. And then you know that this is confirmed in the brain. And then, and only then, you can take the concept to the whiteboard and start doing it in an abstract way, while you introduce the next set of concepts to the drop it and do it phase. Now, what is really interesting about the confirm it phase is that we found that after a while, the treasure hunts led to kids being able to do multiple choice testing. And that after a couple of years of that, it led them to be able to do actual standardized testing. But we never let the drop it and do it phase go. So even when we got to the point where we were having to start teaching advanced mathematical concepts like the area of a circle or how to calculate pi, we did it exactly the same way, just because the cognitive level of the kid just kept going up and up. And you'll find all of those lesson plans and modules on our NTLS, newtrailslearning.com website. So the proof's in the pudding. These things work. Where we were really surprised, we designed this initially as a one-to-one homeschooling thing. Where we were really surprised was that teachers started taking this and applying it in schools, even with one teacher and 30 kids, and it works. So the drop it phase, make it safe. The do it phase, help them understand it with their bodies. The confirm it phase, treasure hunts initially, a lot following the interests of the kid that include the concept. If you work this way, drop it, do it, confirm it, we tend to find that no matter how complex the thing, we're actually at the end of the day trying to communicate, we get there because we break it down into these multiple component parts. We follow the interests of the kid, and above all, we don't activate the amygdala. We don't make it seem to the brain that this new thing is unsafe. And we don't confuse the person by going straight to the abstract, straight to the whiteboard. Let them do it through their body, through their cellular system. And then it gets confirmed in the brain this way. So if this was helpful to you, please hit like. It massively helps us get this information out there, because there's a lot of kids out there suffering in schools, unable to understand things. I was one of them. There's a lot of parents out there struggling to help their kids understand things. I was one of those parents too. This is proven. We've been doing it for about 20 years now. Last thing, my own son, long after we stopped homeschooling him and he ended up going back to high school to graduate, I remember, and if you consider that he started as a non-verbal autistic person, I remember driving him in to sit a 3-hour math exam and saying to him, "Are you really going to sit for 3 hours and do this? This is just mind-blowing to me." And he said, yeah, Dad, I can, but I have to say, if I hadn't done all that movement method, drop it, do it, confirm it stuff for some years, I wouldn't be able to do this. And that came straight from him. So give it a try. I promised you at the beginning of this video a secret hack bonus. Here it is. You got to do this in the right environment. What do I mean by that? Okay, so why are we sitting here under this beautiful plum blossom? Out here in nature on a nice day, this is an ideal environment to learn. I can move. If I move, my brain gets a protein that neuroscientists call BDNF, brain-derived neurotrophic factor. That is neuroplasticity. That is what creates the billions of neurons that get fired when you move and problem solve at the same time. So if you do this drop it, do it, confirm it thing outside in nature, it's always going to work better than if you do it in a classroom. But if you have to do it in a classroom, and sometimes you do, obviously, what do? You set up the classroom so that the kid can move around, or the kids can move around within it, and introduce as many elements of nature as you can into that classroom. What do I mean by that? Come and snip the plum blossoms and put them all over the classroom. If it's winter time, make it fir trees and Christmas tree stuff. Have lots and lots of natural objects in there. Wood, stone, bone, skulls, animal hides, sheepskins. Why? Because the human brain and the human nervous system is actually designed for this habitat called planet Earth. And anytime you have these nice elements around us for our sensory system to interact with, it calms our nervous system and makes us feel safer. So that's the physical side of the environment, as natural as possible and moving through it, even if you're in a room. The second part of the environment, the human environment. You cannot make someone feel threatened. If you do that through impatience, through a bossy tone of voice, through being kind of grumpy and monosyllabic, any of that kind of thing, you're simply gonna trigger the amygdala to say there's a threat. And boom, the intellect goes offline. So the way to do that is not to have your own amygdala triggered. How do you do that? By not having anxiety about what you're going to teach. How do you do that? By practicing. So if you practice beforehand and go through some trial runs without the kid, or with some safe test people, your friends, your family, whatever, give it a couple of trial runs, you're going to go into that much more confidently. And when you encounter difficulties like wandering attention, or perhaps the child hasn't had enough protein and is having a bit of a blood sugar crash, you've allowed for all this in advance and you're not thrown by it. And that allows you to remain warm and empathetic. If you can't be warm and empathetic, you can't teach, because all that happens is the amygdala gets triggered. So the right natural environment that we can move through, even if we have to bring those things into a room, and remaining warm and empathetic by practicing and being familiar with the stuff before we try and teach it, these things will ensure success. If this sounds interesting, click the link below for our free online movement method course. Or if you're ready to dive deeper, head over to our website, newtrailslearning.com, and you can start one of our certification courses there. See you then.